Okay, so this is the second in the series of videos kind of explaining the different steps associated with the extended essay. This is kind of what comes after the first stage, the brainstorm stage. So the next important step is to kind of to familiarize oneself with the expectations specific to their subject, specific to the subject that each person is going to write on. So for our amazing picture here, we have many different rubrics that the Google shows us. Certainly you are familiar with rubrics. There have been many rubrics throughout the years. The internal assessment used rubrics. Many projects used rubrics. This too will use a rubric. So again, kind of focusing on the IB program at AST page and seeing the extended essay link on the left hand side, it takes us to a helpful kind of list of directions where we can go, and for this step we need to focus on the IB version of the extended essay guide. And when you click on this link, it opens up kind of a series of links which tells you all about the extended essay and kind of how it fits into the diploma program. What's most relevant is looking at, on the left hand side, the list of different subjects that appear there, because those subjects are the ones that you will pick from when you decide which subject you're going to write in. This is important because some topics can be written on from the lens of two different subjects. For example, the Mexican Revolution can be written on through a historical lens in the subject of history, or it can be written through a political lens, focusing on the subject of politics. So it's important to choose both your topic and the subject being as how you're going to look at it. A metaphor that I usually give for describing these is that the topic is what you're going to take a picture of, such as the Mexican Revolution or cellular respiration, for example. And the subject is the lens that you put on the camera in order to take the picture. So cellular respiration can be written at through a biological or chemistry type lens. The Mexican Revolution can be written at through a historical or a political type lens. So very important to kind of look at these and think about it. Once you pick one, like for example, let's say you're pretty sure that you're going to do it in history. History is usually one that students at the American School of Tegucigalpa are very comfortable doing. They're very comfortable with historical skills, kind of identifying information, citing it, analyzing it, evaluating it for its origins, purpose, value, and limitations. So if you choose it, you can click on history, and what it will do then is it will kind of open up this, mass of words and text that are telling you about what it means to write an essay in history. And what's very important is that you really take time looking at the choice of the topic and the treatment of the topic, because this is going to tell you really important things. Like, for example, with history, one of the things that you really need to focus on is choosing a narrow topic that you can suitably deal with in 4,000 words. 4,000 words might seem like a lot, but not really. For example, if you're considering a topic like the Vietnam War, entire books, many books have been written. Plus, if we also look at the choice of topic, we see that with history, this can only focus on events that are older than 10 years, meaning that if it is more recent than 10 years, you must pick a different subject. So it's really important to pay attention to the choice and treatment of the topic so that you know exactly what is expected inside of the subject. Beyond this, it's also important to look at these assessment criteria which appear here. There's many different criteria, and these all change depending on the subject that is chosen. So that means if you choose politics, it's going to look different than history. Now, you might be wondering what to do with all this information. How do I process all of this information? Well, that's where the next step comes in. The next step of the process of kind of students preparing themselves for the extended essay is to go through this Google Doc, which is called Understanding the Rubric Form. And what this does is it kind of helps students understand and helps the supervisors see that the student understands exactly what their expectations are. So the way that this starts off is simply, explaining that whatever subject you're going to write your topic about, like for example, like I'm going to write the Mexican Revolution, that's going to be my topic, and it's going to be in the subject of history. Here you're going to explain why the Mexican Revolution is a historical topic. You're going to explain that you're going to do historical skills, like again, I've already listed them. Gathering information, citing it correctly, analyzing it instead of just doing a boring narrative, also taking time to look at origins, purpose, value, and limitations. And of course, the topic's over 10 years old. So that's kind of what goes in the first step. There's also helpful links here that can also take you to basically these same parts of the extended essay guide that I showed before. In the second part, you'll make it clear what your topic is. Here in the example I've been going with, maybe it's the Mexican Revolution, for example. Or maybe you know that it's something a little bit more narrow than the Mexican Revolution. Maybe, for example, you're really interested in the revolutionary phase, the first 10 years. So you'd write that here. The subject, well, it would be history, right? Because it's at least 10 years old, and those are the skills you want to focus on. Then here, there's some boxes for different parts of the subject-specific rubric. So this part's very simple. This part, once you go to the, again, like here I'm at the history part of the extended essay guide. If I go to the bottom under the interpreting the assessment criteria, I can see the many different parts of the rubric. So here in step 2, all that students will really need to do is copy and paste into these different boxes what the different criterion are. This might seem kind of silly, but actually it's really important, because what it helps students do is extract the useful, really important, few sentences from a lot more of text. Now it's true, again, the choice and treatment of topic are very important, but once you know it's history, you don't need to think about those parts so much anymore. Once you know it's history, you really need to focus on the rubric. So, step 3 is really important as well. Step 3 asks students to identify which parts of the rubric will be most difficult and the reasons for that difficulty. For example, in the subject of history, skills that I've seen students struggle with are correct in-text citations. I've seen them struggle with the skill of analyzing. Many students, they're very comfortable kind of summarizing information and maybe saying a bunch of stuff, but they don't really understand how to analyze it. Another part that some students also struggle with in history is actually analyzing it from multiple perspectives. And part of that deals with analysis. So whatever challenges you think you'll face, you'll write them here. And whatever strategies you think you can develop, maybe either on your own or with your supervisor, you'll also write those here. This would be a very good thing to talk to your supervisor about in terms of identifying challenges and thinking about how to overcome them. In the final step, this is where students will actually choose a sample to read. So they will click the link here from the Extended Essay Sample Archive, which opens up a part of the AST Extended Essay site, and they will be able to choose from all the different subjects that are there an extended essay that they would like to read. And the importance of reading it is to look at it, to see the score that it got, and to see kind of why it got that score. So if we open one, for example, if we're doing this in history, you're probably going to choose one of the history ones. There's a few different examples, so you can choose one that's preferably interesting to you. It'll show you what the question is. It'll show you the grade that it got. And it will also show you a bunch of comments that were left by the examiner. So it'll also give really helpful tips for organization, maybe tips for how to cite, different styles of citation, and also kind of help students set the bar in terms of realizing how much work is actually expected. So basically students just paste, history would go here again with our example, and whatever the question from the sample extended essay, it goes there. So in our sample on the cover page, it's got the question. Well, actually it looks like that's the title, but the title's there. The title will be okay. If you want to get the question, usually the question can appear in the abstract. And basically students go through and they write, why they think the student from the example got that score. So the big picture here is that students finish this step having a really concrete idea, understanding exactly how they're going to be graded and exactly what is expected of them. And depending on the subject they pick, it can be very difficult. So with history it's relatively easy, but with some other subjects, particularly ones that are not taught at the school, it can be incredibly more complex.